is that criterion that even God is subject to, and you're right in saying that that would become more godly than the Creator himself, and that might actually be, I don't know. At that point, it's real difficult. I mean, is God and the Creator the same thing? Are they two different things? Are they two facets of the same thing?
Well,
when you
define
talk
God
about,
as the creator, so
right, I do. No, I do. I'm sorry. I'm getting with yeah. I'm talking about other ideas out there. But yes, I think of God as the creator. That it is God and the creator, and it's both the same thing. So yes.
and
So
that
did I
makes him
answer?
the criterion.
Right. His will becomes the criterion. His will being his creative will. When he's acting as the creator, his creative will in selecting from infinite possibilities, those finite realities that we experience, he states will, and that will is made manifest in the physical world. It sounds very trippy now that I'm enunciating out loud, but that's what I'm claiming. That's what I'm claiming. So if you see an error with that, I'd be really happy to address it.
To continue with the tennis analogy,
Sure.
let's go even further back before tennis.
Okay.
When the people were first developing the rules or developing the criterion for how to play tennis.
Mm-hmm.
You would agree they were acting of their will, right? Correct? When they were developing the rules of tennis.
Sure.
Okay. And the rules in tennis are in a way are an act of their will, or representative of the wills of the original creators of tennis, correct?
Say that one more time.
The rules of tennis
Yes.
can be seen as acts of will by the original creators, correct? Similar to how...
Resulting from resulting from their will. Sure.
Okay. Would you say they are the criterions of tennis, the initial creators of tennis?
Yes, I would. In that, tennis itself is an activity based on something that is not itself a game, or is not itself something that we can watch on TV. The tennis itself is purely an idea, and so to say that man is the criterion for tennis is okay, in that man can act as the arbiter of ideas. A man can act as the manifester or the chooser of ideas. Similarly to how I argue that God created the physical universe.
But you would agree that there's a vast difference between creating tennis and not only creating the physical world, creating the laws that world.
Absolutely. The ideas of man are really kind of like a subnatural. You've heard of supernatural. And I would say the mind of God and the thoughts of God are supernatural. The mind of man and the thoughts of man are obviously not in direct governance of reality. I mean, you can't change a monkey into a pogo stick by thinking about it. And in that, yes, there is a dramatic difference between the quality of what a creator God would have to be and what we can both agree on that man is. In that it's our minds do not affect reality, at least in a direct way. We can use our minds to manipulate what already exists, but we can't bring anything out of nothing. I agree.
Okay. I'm still struggling with your use of criterion in this sense, since as I've already explained to you, like Roger Federer, #1 tennis player, that's how I think of criterion.
I think the only way that you can say that any tennis player is #1 is to acknowledge a criterion other than that player. To say that this guy is the #1 tennis player is not because he said so, but because he met some criterion that was separate from himself. And I assume that criterion is the idea of tennis. Would you agree?
Well, I'm just, because since I'm more familiar with tennis with you, and so I'm kind of familiar with how they do the rankings. And,
sure.
And they go by points, like winning various tournaments, win points, and the more points you have, that's how they determine rank. So
what tells them to do that?
What
tells them to go by just how what? That's just how the rules are written, right?
Yeah, that's how the rules are written for.
Precisely.
Correct.
And so his number one status is not by his own volition. It is rather by the criterion outside himself. It's the criterion of tennis. That tennis is not a person, but rather what people participate in.
Exactly.
Would you take? Okay. So in that then, if the criterion of tennis is not the people that participate in it, to say that this number one guy is the criterion of tennis may not be correct. Rather, the idea is that what makes him number one is the criterion for tennis. And it is only in that it has the right to say that this person is number one. How does that sit with you?
A little bit better. Say for the fact that we still have an external criterion here. And
being?
What?
Being? Being what?
Hold on a second.
Sure.
Okay, I totally lost the thought right there.
Oh, no. All right.
Yeah.
But did you have another thought?
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. Okay, so we began with the idea of criterion. We'll just do like a recap of what we just were talking about. We talked about a criterion. We're talking about what it takes to be a number one tennis player. We're talking about what it takes to be a creator god. Okay.
Well, you're using that more as an analogy to unpack my concern with the use of criterion. Since to me, you're using it in a weird way. That's why it's the tennis analogy.
And I might be using it in a weird way. That's why we're talking.
Exactly.
The way I use criterion is in, like, when we're talking about criterions, I recognize the will of God being free, and I understand where that could be somewhat confusing. People sometimes ask me, what is free will if it's not just randomness, and it really becomes its own creature. And so that I do genuinely can appreciate any amount of confusion.
That's why I'm avoiding asking you that question right now. Stay focused.
Right on. Well, some other time, of course. We should do this again. So the criterion being God's will, being the criterion for the physical reality, and just as the rules of tennis are the criterion for the number one player. Yes?
And he's the criterion for physical reality because he both made physical world and
right. The physical world. This might be the tripping point. I think the physical world operates by a governance. It is not random.
Yes.
It is lawful. And that lawfulness isn't lying around in a forest somewhere or is some magic stone in a cave. It is, in essence, non-physical governance. And in that, then, to say that God is what chooses and what arbiters the non-physical governance, being that he chooses what non-physical potentialities exist and which do not. In that choosing, this is good, this is not good, he becomes the criterion for the basis being the lawfulness of the physical world. How's that?